Okay, it says I'm live. Let's see what's happening, folks. And I'm guessing some of you were here in the morning when I did my daily plan. Thanks for keeping me company here. And right now I'm just looking at a regular chart. I've got mentor cues, um, levels in here. I'm using the roadmap feature. I guess kind of like seeing the zones. And here I've got the trading view string that is just manually made by myself, the levels that are on my daily plan, the roadmap that subscribers get, and I tweet out free sometime, whatever. Just the exactly what's on my plan written in longhand, quote unquote, by my erstwhile AI assistant because typos on me. Any of you that chat with me know that you get if you get 50% correct letters, you're doing okay. All right, uh, enough of that stuff. I invited some people here. I don't see anybody show up yet. Let me look on my other computer, and then we'll get down to business. Uh, some people threaten to show up, but I don't see them. Is anybody on YouTube or Twitter? Type and say hi. If I'm talking to myself, that's okay. I'm used to it. Okay. Anyway, here we go. So we're pretty much stuck in the orbit of the 6,000. Ah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. It's you and me, guy. Uh, good morning. Okay, we have some folks here. Good. Thanks for chiming in. And today, I mean, it's not rocket science. Today looks like it's turning out to be exactly what it's setting up to be, a range compression day, going into a big quarterly options expiration. We tend to get range compression. We have the big 5,900 JP Morgan short call, which I'll probably do something on it, do a live stream on it. Maybe I can get a guest, quote unquote, to speak on it a little more. Um, I certainly talk about it myself. Anyway, let's get to the business of making money today. So here's we are. We're in the chop zone, and the way it's looking now, I don't see it's going to need a catalyst to break out of the orbit of this chop zone. Um, Let me show you guys something else. Where is it? Um, I gotta find it. I'm not the most techie person around. Here it is. I also do this thing. Haven't updated it because we haven't left the range. Here was the intraday range, and we're just still in it. And this is again just kind of the same levels, just a different way. A subscriber had said, "Hey, can you do something where I can just see the levels, keep it in front of me?" So I said, "Sure," and here it is. Great for selling iron condors, which is most of you know if you guys know me from around the neighborhood. That's what I do. And now let's switch to options depth and see what's going on. Now, if you have any questions, comments, whatever, let me know. Like I said, I invited people to come onto the stage, but nobody did. Let me get my thingy here. Okay. I invited my brother Binkus, who does like the short-term scalping, to join, and I don't know, he'll maybe be in later. I have an allergist appointment later today, so I'm going to be leaving here soon, and I'll come back for Power Hour. Okay, so here we are. So I'm looking at market maker positions here, and I'm just going to assume that you folks know what this means, and if not, I'm just going to give you a quick how to use it operationally. We're not going to go into the theory much at all now. I'll have some people on maybe to help do the theory, or I'll do another stream on that. And so basically, Here's market maker positions, net long or short position number. Not worried about gamma, not worried about delta. That's going to change as we move. I could choose that. I can just sort of mentally imagine what's happening as we go up. And as you see, we're in the stuck like Chuck zone. All these short, customer short, market maker longs are creating supportive flows while we're in this area. The iron condor, the icy whale, I mentioned in my morning tweet, and that some of you guys that are into the whole IC SPX scene know about, is over here, and those short calls here, and we have short calls at 30 and at 25, which is how we define the top of the chop zone on that card, are suppressive, but as we go down, the market makers are a little too short and they have to buy. As we go up, they have to sell, and we're stuck in here. And I sold a bunch of iron conduits. They already closed. If I weren't leaving, I would sell another tranche soon. And we could brainstorm on it. We could talk about it. Hi, Victoria. Good to see some of the familiar faces, quote unquote. Um, so that's that. So now let's look at this just to get a broader view. Are there any short signals in SPX? Not really. I mean, not for today. I mean, if you want to do a short scalp and try and get 5 points or 3 points or something, you know, a short signal would come. Well, let me answer that question a little less flippantly. What would trigger a short signal for me right here, right now, for today, for your DTE scalp? Well, I would need to see this whole thing break. So this whole range between 6,000 and 75 is supportive. So I mean, could we go down a point? 10 points? Yeah, but there's no. I don't see an accelerated move to the downside here. It's because it's not there. Like one of my mentors, Paul Duncan from Gamma Edge, and he's on Twitter also. I'll give him a shout out, see if I can get him on one day to speak. He's not a shy one either. Don't torture the data. I remember when he said that one day. I was like, yeah. And there's no way that I see a big short setup here now. Now, yes, if we break 55, can we go down to here? Yeah, we could in theory. So here's where the possible acceleration is, but but these are conditional. So 60-50, we have a lot of customer long, market makers short, but those are the other sides of spreads. We have all this stuff blocking it before we get up there. So, I mean, in theory, we ain't getting up there. Now, at the end of the day, if we're, somewhere over here at 2025, we could kind of squeeze in here if I zoom in a little bit on this. Here's just kind of a flat zone. So this corresponds to here where there's not much market maker hedging response required. So when I say support, resistance, or levels, I think of those as reaction levels or response levels. The market makers are required, so to speak, to make to respond. They have long or short options, and their systems tell them they have to do something. So the larger the positions, the stronger the response. And I tagged this morning. Valsigs had a good um, explainer of the market maker response. Okay, morning. Just started trading SPX. Are you liking? Okay, so options depth versus shadow flow versus unusual whales is um, apples and oranges, so to speak, or really apples and and I don't know, and sand. Okay, unusual whales, and I don't use them anymore in cheddar flow. I use them. They, my brief disclaimer, nothing against them. They do, a lot of people make money with them. You get unusual volume. Um, for SPX, they use aggressor tagging. If it was near the bid, they say sold. Near the ask, they say bought, and they try to figure it out. And they get it right, more often than they get it wrong, I suppose. This is tag data. This is what the market makers have in their hands. So I'm not guessing. I know. So most other people use what's called naive GEX, assuming that calls are sold and puts are bought, which we know is not accurate. If anything, we know that call debit spreads are bought and sold. Call credit spreads are bought and sold. There are flies. There are calendars. There's all these multi-leg option strategies that the best thing I found, I've tried them all, for SPX targeted and specifically is this. Now, I love Mentor Q. Their levels are close enough. The levels show me where the levels are. But if I want to interpret what's going to go on, I need to see this. If I want to be a surgeon. Mentor Q, for example, has futures, oil, individual equities that SPX isn't trying to have. SPX isn't, options depth isn't trying to identify unusual options activity or anything like that. It's purely telling me, um, it's purely telling me what the market makers have in their hand. This is basically an MRI of what the market makers have in their hand. Now, I still have to interpret what it means. I still have to figure out what the expected hedging response is going to be there. And let's remember that market makers have to respond, but of course there's real money players there. There's algos here, whatever. But we know where the response levels are going to be, and I can have Valsigs or somebody come on and talk to you a little bit more about how orders go in, but from what I understand, and I'll kind of butcher it somewhat, if whoever it is, a small hedge fund or even a big hedge fund or whoever, wants to buy 1,000 SPX 6025 calls for today, they're not going in on Thinkorswim or IBKR and doing it. They're calling somebody or they're routing it, and the trade is negotiated at some kind of price. And then the market maker lifts the bid of the offer. They come up with a price, and that's the price it's quoted at. They might have sold it, but if that price is less than the last price that it traded at, it'll be printed as a sell or as a buy, even if that's not accurate. And then, however, the local vol around that strike comes out, aggressive tagging may or may not be wrong. Different people have different ways of tagging it. Some will use aggressor tag closer to the bid or the ask. Some will use implied volatility around or around the strike. There's different ways to do it. And they're okay, they're pretty good. Before I had this, I made plenty of money using the other stuff. You just have to kind of use your judgment and your common sense, so to speak, which sometimes fails. So that's what's going on here. And I may or may not. Hey, how you doing? I may or may not piss some people off. Pardon my Russian, but I'm gonna tell people what I think. Other people that like other products, sure. Do I use many products? Yes. I use lots of people. There are lots of tools out there. They're all good. I have a buddy that's helping me build my boat barn. He has three different kind of nail guns. I don't know what kind of screwdrivers, wedges and hammers and who the knows what. He has different tools for the job. Now, He just bought a different nail gun for whatever it was. He's got six nail guns. He bought a seventh one because he wants to do the job a little better. So I have a bunch of nail guns. I have as many nail guns as uh, as I need. I got them all. I got every nail gun I could find. If there was another nail gun around that wasn't redundant, I would look at that too. Because sometimes it'll just give me a little nuance, and sometimes that little nuance will be the difference between a winning trade or a losing trade. Maybe 99% of the time it won't be, but that one time, especially when you're selling premium, and I like to sell them wide, 20 wide typically. And if I have 10 or 15 or 20 contracts, 20 wide, and I got 75 cents, and I've got $2,000 times 10 is $20,000. If I've got more, I've got a lot of money on the table. I'm willing to pay the extra $50. And what to buy depends on what you're looking for. I'd hate to put myself in the position to do a review on the products, but I love Gamma Edge. They have a very organized system. I'll let them talk about themselves. I love Mentor Q. They've got a great system. They've got tons of great products, especially for futures. They're pretty much the only game in town um, with Gamma. So and there's others I use too. But options depth, SPX is my specialty, and that's who I use for that. Okay, so here we are in, and we're just, I wouldn't be surprised if we pin at 6,000 today. Working to arrive at your own scripture, right? But the cost of the data alone, exactly. The cost of data alone. That's exactly right. And I'm not that fancy in deriving in doing programs, but I've kind of baited with people who do that kind of thing, and that was pretty much what they said. That the cost of doing it, of getting the data, and then what's the word they use? Scrubbing the data and doing whatever you need to do was prohibitive. Convex value has some really good stuff. My brother uses it. Yamco on Twitter and on Substack uses it, and they've got really good stuff. Flash uses it, Web Flash, whatever, I forget what he calls his thing. There's a lot of guys that have services. I'm friends with most of them. They all have good products. Yeah, so that's all I can say. But I'm not here to pitch products or to say who's good or bad. I'm here to try to help us make money. So let's make money. Yeah, I'll put the discount codes in, I guess. Yeah, one of my buddies keeps reminding me to do all that stuff. Let me throw all my codes in here. Suppose I should do all that stuff, right? So now you're seeing behind the curtain. If I can figure out where the heck I am, even. Okay, let's throw some codes in. Make sure I have the right one because I'm prone to make mistakes. Okay, here's a discount code for options desk. We'll get this stuff out of the way first. Here's a discount code for Mentor Q. Those are the only ones I have handy right now. Mentor Q's got futures, got lots of individual equity. They have intraday updates also. I don't have the other guys yet. I'm sure they'd be happy to provide them. And here's my Substack. Free subscribers are good, paid subscribers are better. And that's that. Okay, now let's try and make some money. So here we are. and we're stuck. I wish I could, if you're a scalper, all my scalper friends are complaining, oh, it's a boring day, and I'm partying like it's 1999 because I sold iron condors. Um, so, okay, since I've got a doctor's appointment, could you advise me to use options F for I'm not sure before start your trading. What do you mean? So somebody's asking me on Twitter if he should use it before starting his trading. You mean like before you ever trade SPX to use it? I would advise you, and this is generic, not investment advice. I'm not an advisor, all that stuff. My brother, who's got two sons that are high-powered lawyers, would shoot me for saying anything like that. Um, This is not investment advice. I can tell you what I do, what makes sense. I think logically is if I'm before I'm putting money on the line, I get familiar with the platform, with the tool I'm going to use, and depending on my experience level, I would paper trade it until I learned. I would find mentors. I've been doing this for quite a while. I mean, not to talk about myself, but what the hell? I've been messing around with the market, I don't know, since the 70s, 80s for a long time. Back in those days, it was buying stocks, PE ratios, dividends, buy and hold. Started messing around with calls and puts in the 90s. OEX options were a thing then in the 90s for a while. That's the S&P 100, the quarterlies. Kind of played with that a little bit. Then my brother actually read Macmillan's options Bible, so to speak, in late 90s, 2000, and we got hooked on that. And it's been that ever since. But I've had mentors along the way. I've had mentors along the way. How do I know if the SPF is going up or down? How do you know? Okay. Well, right now, vol is ticking up. I don't have that screen open to me because I have my StreamYard on that, but I'm going to take your word for it. And I see SPX is going down, and I would expect. I don't have my other stuff visible to me, and I gotta let me get the tick off. Let me get the Dixie off. I don't really need to see the dollar. Let me throw the VIX here so I see something at least. Yeah, VIX is just putzing around at 17.5. And we looked at VIX earlier this morning too. But let me answer the guy's question as best I can. So if I go back over here using options depth, then we'll look at another platform to see what they would tell you. Like I said, they get information everywhere. Okay, so right now this is support. Market makers long. So this is being tested. If volatility picks up, somebody mentioned vol, then these lose some of their supportive characteristics. But there's a lot here, man. There's a lot here. Like, could we go down 5 points? Yeah. If something happens, 59.90. Yeah. Of course, anything can happen. Anything can change. And so, how I decide if we're going up and down is I look at where we are in relation to this. Look at the pattern. Now, this is position size. So let me go over here and show you something else. If instead of looking at positions, I look at market maker gamma. Oh, that is gamma. That's why it looks different. Okay. So this is telling me the strength of the reaction here. And so here you see there's a pretty strong reaction or response required by market makers here, 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 here. All from between, all in this area, market makers have to buy. The blue means supportive, buying, for lack of a better word. So I just don't, and going up this way, it means selling. So basically, it's telling me that we're not going anywhere. Weekend effect of VIX, that's true. Also, oh yeah, the other thing about VIX, glad you mentioned it, nuance. And Val Signals is his Twitter thing, and he's another mentor. I literally have in his mentorship class. I've been in it since he started it in October '93. I'm in his VIP, his elemental P, a paying customer, so to speak. I don't mind paying. Shout out to Val Siggs. He was a market maker for 15 years, trained market makers, whatever, and now is on this side of the table for whatever his reasons are. He'll tell you his story. It's his story to tell, not mine. Um, and so, and so I listened to him. And so he's the one that, in his course, he explains it in excruciating detail how when IV comes up, the deltas increase, and the contours or the sharpness of the market maker hedging gets fuzzy, for lack of a better word, the directional bias. But there's just so much here that's going to take something to break through it. So we're not going anywhere. I mean, long story short, how do I know where we're going? Look at the shape of the curve. Now, what am I, market maker? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Do I have the right day? Suddenly we flip. Suddenly we have longs here. So these are possible magnets to the upside. Do I have the right date on? I might not have the right date on. Suddenly the complexion has changed a little bit. Market maker net, 0 DTE, apply. Yeah, oh, isn't that interesting? Okay, so right now market makers are long all this stuff. So those are potential magnets here, but it has the opposite effect. As we move away, there's more selling. So now these see this? The 6,000s have closed. Something here has happened at 6,000. A little window is opening. A window to 59.90 is opening. Not saying we're getting there, but it's opening. Not enough. Not enough. When you look at the whole thing, it's, yeah, if you want, you might be able to get a 10-point scalp down. You might. Oh, now you, Dexy's asking. Okay, so now we have Delta, which I could also look at. And just for fun, let's go up here. So here's, instead of position number, that's Delta. Now Delta is also going to be changing with spot movement, with changes in volatility, etc. So now I just changed it to Delta from position number to Delta. There, did it update? So market makers are short Delta here, short Delta here. Suddenly, vol sliding down the vol spectrum. Oh, that's what I wanted to. I want to say about vol. Thank you for. And if you want to come on one day and talk, I'd love to have you join in the fun. What kind of dog is that you have there, by the way? Okay, I'm glad it was a benefit to you. Um, about VIX going up. Yes, there's a weekend effect. Additionally, as Val Siggs mentioned before I sidetracked myself. Let's remember that when we're looking at VIX, we're looking at July. We're looking at the strip of options, roughly 30 days, whatever the calculation is, right? So that's taking us into July. We have July 9th tariff nonsense. We have tariff deadlines, whatever it is. And so part of what's coming into the calculation for VIX, when you're just looking at VIX, we're not talking about fixed strike volatility. We're not talking about anything fancy, looking at the IV on your options chain or whatever fancy programs you might have done. Uh, I have it on DE. DEX. Okay. I'm not sure which one that was, but whatever it is, I'll go and I'll correct it as we go along. So right now I have it on DEX. I like it having it on position number. And since I'm the one doing it, that's how I'm gonna. Yeah. So that was negative delta. I just like seeing this. My eye is used to it. So my eye is used to seeing this is supportive. That's what whatever your eye gets used to, and that's it. Floating. That's it. We're floating. So if I were to do a trade now, hold on, let me stop for a second. I want to pull up another screen. Now, like I said, the main reason I'm not is simply because I'm going to the doctor's office and I am not going to be cavalier about leaving these things open, even though I'm 99% sure I've known too many people blow up their account taking stuff for granted and like walking away during an iron condor. Oh, I'm gonna go to the park with the kids. It's safe. I'm 50 points away until they're not. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Let me present and share screen again. I mean, what you're gonna get from me is just another trader who's been doing this for a minute, showing you what I do. I'd love to have more people come on here. Okay, so in the morning stream, I talked about selling this here 59. I said, oh, that looked good to me. I put in 59.40.30 for 55 cents. Just one. I did more in my Thinkorswim account. Um, Buy to close at 20%, 20 cents, I think, 25, whatever it was. I put it in, it closed. I did more of them in my real account, and that's that. Then later on, I did a 35, a 50, 35, 15 wide. I got whatever I got for it. If I wanted to close it out, I say Tasty is good for like this kind of stuff. 50% is 30 cents. Do I have a buy? Oh, I don't have a buy back in. So normally I'd put in buy to close. I'll be a little greedy. I'll take 60%, 20 cents. Good till cancer. Goodbye. Good luck. I'm not going to leave it open but when I leave for the doctor's. But if I were to look to take a trade now, all right, what would I be looking for? Well, I'm going to go, let's pull up mental Q first just to get a bird's eye view of where we are. And here's my levels this morning that's in my roadmap that I just have written out. So we're still in the chop zone. We have this Gex void underneath. What I mean by that, no, don't torture the data. There was nothing there. We have this pivot at 75, which was also Mancini, the future scalping guru, has a pivot in this area. Um, so I would love to be below 59.50, but there ain't nothing there if I wanted to sell premium. We're not getting enough intraday movement for a good scalp. So what would I look at? I'd look for a fly. I'd look for me, I was looking for an iron condor. If my brother was here, he would come up with scalps. But so let's think through some ways that I might do a trade. I like that 75 level, that 70 level. So if I want to see, there's really not much juice even there. 10 wide, 60 cents, not bad. I'll do it if they fill it. I'll do a second one similar for 55 cents. Not investment advice. Don't you dare. It filled. Opposite order. Since this is a quickie, 30 cents. Okay, good. Now we got two of them. Good. Okay. So we got two of them. Opposite order, 30 cents. And I'll show you a different way. On top, so we know the iron condor whale is here. No juice. Whoops. Now let's look where the where the whale is. His calls are 20 cents. Nothing to do there. All the safe stuff is gone. I sold up there. That's gone. I sold up at wherever it was, 45, something like that. It's gone. His puts. So let me show you what his morning trade, what his trade was on Friday. He sold this 55.50. Did a great trade. Great trade. And he sold a 40, 45. It's 30 cents. Now he got around $2. He got around $2. So that's that. So we're out of his protection zone. So now we have to think like traders. And well, on top, let's take a look at what's going on here on top with the intraday update. Top of the job zone is up here. We have this roadmap feature up here. So, you know, where would I like to be? I'd like to be, if I'm going to sell a call, which I probably, I don't know, any juice up here at 35, 50 cents, I'll sell one. Similar, do one for 45 cents. Buy the close, opposite. I'm not crazy about that, so I'll close it at a quarter. And that's the kind of, it's much more fun when we're moving to do this. Now, one could scalp these much closer. You could do something like that. You know, okay, there's a second call that gets filled. So there's opposite order, 25 cents. I always close each leg separately. That's the way I do it. I know a lot of people will tell you that you're supposed to do it. This thing didn't close yet. Surprise, 50% by the close, 20 cents. Okay, so it's hovering a couple pennies away. And that's it. So anyway, I don't know where all my buddies are. And now let's go back to trading view. Now let's take a look at Tesla. And for that, I'm going to look at the mentor cube. For look at, I'm looking more. I'm thinking more of a July trade. So I'm going to look at something a little further out in time. We had a little breakdown this morning. Let me change the time frame here to 15 minutes. And now we're back at 295. I think I put out a freebie roadmap on Twitter for tests. So that's for intraday scalping, and there's really not much here. Um, what I'm looking at for Tesla, and I have, what do I have on? I sold a put into July, and I have an iron fly. It's just kind of sitting there doing nothing. Not an iron fly, excuse me, a regular fly, a broken wing. But let's think out loud. Let's think out loud. Um, I'm an old man. I'm 72 years old, bro. Okay, so we have earnings July 22nd. That's spicy. So I like that fact because, again, it's not rocket science. A market darling like Tesla, wherever it is going to get bid up into earnings. It's the law. I think there's a federal regulation. Just a joke. Come on, guys. Um, so if you don't mind using buying power or margin. I mean, what I did was I sold 200 or 220 strike puts. I would accept assignment there. But that's not what. Let me show that. what I would, so if I were to add a trade right now, you already have something. So let me talk about how I would construct a trade. You're just watching me think out loud here, guys. That's all we're doing. So 250 is a big gamma level, round number, et cetera, et cetera. The Trump tantrum breakdown nonsense uh, took us down to 270 something. So, I'm pretty sanguine that selling something down here would be fine. Plus, we have like a delta down there. These puts are probably still a little jacked, not as jacked as they were. They have a high IV of 70%, so the puts are still jacked. So I don't know. Let's just say hypothetically, I'm going to sell a naked one for 360, 350, whatever. 225, I would accept assignment. This is what I'm working off. I did something similar. Now I want to get some movement. I don't know that it's going to run quick. Actually, Oct is another one I was looking at. I don't know that it's going to run quick. Now we all know that this thing could run. When the Teslarians get excited, okay, also when they get depressed, okay. But so where can it run to? Well, over 300 to 315. That's the next gamma level up, just on the zero DTE. In the complex, we have 320, 350. TA 101 tells you that we can go back into this area where we were. Remember a couple of weeks ago, Tesla was riding high. It's down 100 points or whatever it is, 75 points now. So could it get back up there if Trump and Elon kiss and make up, the most powerful person in the world, the richest man in the world? I'd hate to be in the middle of that food fight, but apparently I am. Okay, so what would make sense to me here? I'll start off with something simple. Let's look to sell. I would look to sell a fly, to buy a fly. So we'll just do this because it's easy. Long call, go. All right. No, I don't want call. I want flies. Hold on. Oh, it's here. Okay. I could build it out manually. All right, I'll just build it out manually. It's easier. Okay, so I'm gonna sell two of these. Might want to give it a little extra room to accelerate. Where is gamma working for me? Where am I going to get more speed on the way up? Let me go back to the chart here. I'm going to get speed. Now, if I wanted to trade a June, I would trade it differently because here's where there's a lot of gamma. So that's where I'm going to get convexity up around 315, 320. So let's just look at that for fun. And there's mathematically better ways to do it. So I would do something like, let's just keep it simple. 325, 350, and 37. Let's start with the standard. Whoops. Okay. Except I screwed this up. Delete that. Okay. I want to add one here, not two. One. Son of a bitch. Come on. I don't know why it keeps adding the wrong numbers here. All right. I'm having problems with. Okay. There we go. Let's do it this way. Let's move the fly up. Let's move the strikes up. All right. So let's just say I want to, I mean, I literally do want to target the 50. If I want to give it a little extra room just to make sure, since that 50 is that round number and people like the round numbers. So if I wanted to be a little aggressive, don't mind spending some money. Well, here's your standard one. $2, Own two Tesla, 220, 78 cents credit, free trade. That's one way to do it. Broken wing fly. Okay. And I like the broken wing flies as well. And there's a few flavors of broken wing flies you could do too. Now, if I think Tesla could run back to 375, I might break it this way and be willing to pay a little more. Why? 25 points, 25 to 50. I make, let's just pretend it goes to 400, to a million, whatever. I make 25. And then if it goes through this, I lose 15 on this, I make 10. So that's $1,000 if I sit there like a deer in the headlights and let it run through. That's on an assumption that it keeps going. And I can do that for a course of 20 cents. Of course, I can be wrong. I'm not saying that. Or if I can move it up to two and a quarter, nice round number, I can get paid $30 and go and buy a Starbucks. Um, you have a broken wing fly trade idea? Throw it in the chat. Let's see what it is. So something like this, if I were to just do a more normal person trade, I would probably do something like I would probably want to, into June, go for the June monthly. We got convexity up here at that 1520. Something like that. Debit spread. I might want to fly it, add another one here because I'm a theta junkie. I've been accused of it before, and it's true. Something like that for $1.40. Something like that. Gamma convexity will push, but then stall, so max profit on Boeing 5 should be just above the max gamma. Depending on how, if price obeys us. You know what I mean? But yes. And where's the max gamma? Well, where it is now in the zero DTE. And I would have to look at another toy. I wasn't going to do this, but you talked me into it. Let me go to my buddy's Gamma Edge. I have to invite Paul Duncan on here or one of the Gamma Edge people. I have Mental Q come here and they've got some good scalpers there too. Everyone's got, a lot of people make a living doing this stuff. A lot of people lose money doing this stuff too. Let's take a look at Tesla. Okay, invert. Let's forget about today. Let's look at wide chop zone. Really nothing you can see here. Here is kind of the possible COTMP. That's one of their secret sources. That's kind of where you would want to buy it, maybe. That's kind of. I'll let them explain. It's where the puts go in the money. However they calculate all that. And that's typically a good buy setup, unless it breaks and it becomes down goes Frazier. And here's where the calls go in the money. So you could say that would be where you would get your convexity move. Now let's take a look at July. Wide choppy zone, so there's not a clear pattern in this. Calls go in the money at 31. That's where the convexity is. If I want to add these in there, I just get a wider chop zone. So it's kind of messy. Do I want to add earnings in there? Kind of messy. Do I want to look at the whole complex? Okay, if I look at the whole complex, I get a clearer picture. If I wanted to be like a trader officially, the way I like trading a breakout. I would say we're in a transition zone. That's kind of their terminology, a lot of people. If we transition over 32.5, then we got room to run. There's more positive gamma from their calculations than negative, so it's more supportive. There's the whole complex. If I were to look at that, see, we're in this thin zone. So, I'm a front runner, but really, by the book, you'd want to see over 305 over this. You'd want to see this pick up. We're really close to being trapped under this. We have this big 300 that really you should wait for over that for a long entry, even if you're a front runner, except for me. But yeah, that's how I would do that. SPX, I see, looks like it wants to move. So let's go back to the mental Q chart. And what do you know? Top of the chop zone, nothing much going on. Let's take a look at. Am I getting in trouble for showing everybody's products? I don't know. Hopefully not. I guess you could take screenshots. So now what I want to look at is, has there been a big change in positioning? So you see, right near the money, the 60 10s, these little wicks. I don't know if you can see them. They bought them, they sold them, whatever it is. So here's where the action is. We still have customers short these 6,000s. Like, let's remember that was a straddle of some sort, a strangle, something that was sold whenever. Because if we want to go over here, let's look at something else. This is another, and actually, I used to look at it this way a lot more back in my misspent youth 6 months ago or a year ago. Up, those puts closed, the ones we did before. Thank you. All right, now I'm looking at customers' positioning. So, since most of us are on the retail side, maybe it's easier. Sometimes it's easier to think what a trade is doing. Okay, come on. Light up, light up. Come on. There we go. Let's get rid of this. The net, so I can just see. All right, I don't know how to get rid of it. I gotta click around. It's a little sticky. So we're gonna see what's going. Oh, there we go. Yay! I'm just getting impatient. So here's what customers are. I want to talk about the 6,000. So really, there's not a lot going on at 6,000. Considering you see there's shorts, short calls, short puts, about 1,000 each. You have all this sold customers, sold stuff over here. Well, this whole thing is sold options. This whole thing is positive gamma. Everybody is selling vol. Here's one potential magnet that we ain't getting to. Here's the other potential magnet we ain't getting to, the longs, and that's it. So that's that kind of day. Um, so yeah, so there's that. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. And so again, there's it's got sell, vol, and go away. Okay, so here's a little dead spot that we could go into later in the day. This also has time as a function. On the x-axis is time. Oh shit! Oops, pardon. What was that first one? 60/20. Where we're looking over here. Customer short call 60/20. Yeah, but these are customer short, so it's going to be hard to get over that. Now, if you look here, kind of like this path of least resistance drift zone is 60/10. You know, if we can get up here and people start closing stuff, if these shorts get closed, or now also let me make it clear. Let's just say whatever it is, whoever short these calls doesn't mean whoever was short closed them. It could be you buying them, me buying them. So this is net what's in the market maker's hand, not necessarily the customer that did it closed it. They may or may not have. The little black spot tells you where we were at the open. So at the open, there were less short calls here than there are now. So more people are jumping on board selling the 60/30s. The 6,000s is basically what was there at the open. And of course, there's really not much action out of the money. On the put side, what's going on? The 59.70, there was really nothing there in the morning, and people were short, and they closed them. Did they close them? Are they buying these for convexity? It'd have to be, well, let me not overstate it, but I will. I will. You have to be crazy to buy a 59.70 put right now here at this price. I mean, unless you had some, I don't see any reason to think that we would get that and to hold that it pays to hold on to that there. So that's not common sense. Again, says that that's not somebody buying that looking for convexity, and it's only 227 contracts. So that's nothing. There's nothing there. And so the default is that we just stay here. All right. I'm going to end this at 11 o'clock. I guess my brother is not going to join us today. I got a doctor's appointment, so he'll join us later. Um, I have an octa trade idea that maybe I'll put up for my subscribers as a bottom feed thing. I trade individual stocks small, I might do two contracts or five contracts on an individual stock. I might do 20 or 40 or whatever it is on SPX. I mean, SPX is my bread and butter. The other stuff is to keep me interested. I used to trade individual stocks and individual options before this.